So we've been studying arcade tribes today, or for this week, and I thought we should finally go into the clans within the arcade group. There's actually a slide here I forgot to do, and it's called the operator. And I think they're covered within this group, but they are a segment you should think about. These are people who run an arcade on their own. There's two types of people. There's the people who own the arcade, they actually own the grounds itself, and then there's people who are called distributors. A distributor owns arcade games and lets their game be in an arcade for a percentage. When I worked at an arcade, almost all of our games were actually somebody else's, and we just had the consoles and the bowling alley. Oh, and the ping pong table, which I hated. I love ping pong, but I hated those ping pong balls. They landed everywhere, and it was just torture having to get those stupid things out of all sorts of special electronics and stuff. And the pool tables. The pool tables were fine, but man, every horror story I've got from that, or just about every horror story I've got, is actually from that ping pong table. Anyway, onto arcade clans and how they are working within each other, or working within the arcade tribe. The first one is called Pinball, and Pinball is its own tribe, and they have their own eras, they have their own things. But if you go to an arcade show, you know for a fact that there are people that are just there for pinball. At the Northwest Pinball and Arcade Show, the first day of the show, it'll be a Friday. The people who arrive will be pinball only guys, and they will just ignore everything else. This is the perfect time to go in and play the arcade games, because the pinball people are only there for pinball, and they only want to see pinball. And there's some really cool pinball at the Northwest Pinball and Arcade Show. There's the original pinball games there, before flippers or anything like that. And then they'll have the latest stuff. I got to play Houdini before it came out. I got to play Aliens before it came out. I got to play all these games before they came out, and I was just like, this is a lot of fun. And, I've got to admit, last year my favorite one was actually Batman 66. That was just a fun little game, and most people didn't play it as much, and I was just like, no, this is a fun one. Why is everyone ignoring it? I don't get it. But that's another story. But Pinball will get their own clans, and they will pretty much, the more hardcore of them, will pretty much ignore everything else arcade. So they're a very major clan, and they're also their own thing. One of the interesting parts is at the Northwest Pinball and Arcade Show, I actually had people come up and be like, we don't have enough pinball, and we'd have like 250 pinball machines. And they'd be like, well, just get rid of the arcade games. We'll just have pinball. And I'm like, no. I personally am here for the arcade. The pinball is nice, but the arcade is what I'm here for. Or the vids are what I'm here for. So the term here is vids and pins. And obviously this is a pinball, so it's called a pins. And the vids are the upright arcade games that you imagine. And then they have something called an EM, an electromechanical machine, but that doesn't show up very often anymore. They're great games, though. So Pinball is its own clan. Then we have the Rare Games people, and this is a game called Spectral. Oh, I can't read it right now, but I played the game. I enjoyed it. You're trying to get your ball into each one of the colors in a certain order and stuff. And it's a fun little game. And then after playing it, I found out that there was like one of 20 of this game ever released. So it's an incredibly rare game. And there are groups within Arcade Clan, or Arcade Tribe, that look for the more rare games. It's not whether or not the game is fun, it's whether or not it's rare. Nobody else has played this game. This is a game that is new and kind of original. And this is an interesting clan because they look for the game that nobody else has played. They're a very adventurous sort of folk because they want to be able to fix these machines, and often these machines are difficult to find parts for because they're just so rare. So it's an interesting clan. Moving on. Then we have the Purists. And this is a really nice Neo Geo right there. And you'll notice that some of the machines aren't kind of there yet, and we'll talk about those in a little while. But the Purists, they want to make the machine as perfect as it was when it was released onto an actual arcade. So you have a Neo Geo MVS right there, and every button is correct, every selection is correct. They've got all the little cards on the top correctly placed, and it works well. And if you look inside, it's cleaned well. The guy at the Portland Retro Gaming Expo, his name is Ian, owns the major Neo Geo that's there, is one of the best Neo Geos I've ever seen, and he's a very purist type of guy. He looks at making sure that each chip is the same as it was back in the day, and he'll upgrade things because are based on the welds and making the welds a little better or something like that. But he's trying to keep it at what it was instead of what it could be. And the purists obviously have an opposite, and that is the people who are just there to play the game. Those are the space savers. If you look, there's a Neo Geo machine right there, but it has 150 games instead of a couple games. This little arcade is part of a game sales area, and they made up. They had to fill this small room with as many arcade games as they could, so they put machines with hundreds of thousands of games on each one. So that Street Fighter machine has multiple games. That Neo Geo machine game has hundreds of games. If you look off to the left, you'll see a selection for multiple games, and that's a 1 in 60, by the way. And they're just these special cards that you hook up to the machine. Because of JAMA requirements, you can actually just hook it on, and you've got 60 games right there. And it helps you save a lot of space. And the space savers are there for the experience, but they fully understand that they can't fit games all in there. And I just want to point out the Strider machine is gorgeous. I have never actually seen a full Strider machine, and yeah, that's on my list. That's on my I want that list. And then you look and you'll find several games that are on their own, pure, but the rest of the games are very, selection-wise. They've got emulation going on, and this is for the experience, but not the pure experience. They have a limited amount of space, so they're trying to give you kind of the feel of the game and not the perfect feel of the game. And you can understand why. There's just a limited amount of space. So I think that's the third time I've said limited amount of space. Fourth, right there. And it's just as much a part of the arcade tribe. And you'll see these guys kind of look at each other angrily. Because, you have the purist who wants the screen must look this way. It can't be LCD. It must be the CRT from the original thing, and I'm willing to rebuild everything. And then you have the guys going, well, I put in an LCD and a multi-game thing because, frankly, I've only got room for one arcade machine, and I've got a bunch of games I like. So, and this saves me a ton of money and space, so this is what I've got. And you can kind of see that. Then we have the eras and styles, and this is from Round 1 Arcade. This is a Pac-Man and a Galaga, and they're great machines, but these are the modern takes on them. And they're actually ticket machines. And these are not the same games as they were when they were first released in the arcade. This is a redone version of the era of a modern era version of the Pac-Man machine. And we've talked about eras and styles beforehand, so you can see that each era has their kind of own clan. The black and white clan, the vector clan, the pin clan, as I say, the tank controls clan, the JAMA standard clan, the Street Fighter clan. Each one has their own kind of specialization, and they each try to do that thing. And an arcade owner will try to bring as many games as he can to fit each clan. So if you go to, say, the Las Vegas arcade in London. And yes, I know that's a weird name. The name of the arcade is Las Vegas, and it's in London. But the guy who runs that is actually really open about how things are run and the way he thinks about it. And he says that he puts in a bunch of machines that fit clans that will gather attention. And then he'll put, specific clans in the back because he knows that once they know that an arcade is there, they'll just go looking for their game and they'll just basically migrate in that clannish area. And in the same way that we see a Pac-Man game where the dots are here, the dots are there, the dots are there, you just have people just kind of circling around their area, and that's all that they stay in. And that's pretty much it. Another comment about the Purist is sometimes they don't care if the machine looks bad as long as it's the game they love. It's an opposite side of the of Purist from what I was showing you, and that is, they care about the game itself. And there are people who are like, if the cabinet it's called the cab, if the cab is kind of dirty and it's got chunks out of it, and it's peeling away, and some of the controls aren't quite right, they don't care because that's the game that they love, and it's not the feel of the game. It's not pure unless it looks like it's kind of run down in some ways. And that is an original philosophy within gaming, Within other games, I have actually seen people who wanted to buy a game specifically with a label on the back of it, a sticker on it from a specific sales group because that's the place that they rented that game from, and they want that game or that feel of that game. So they actually want the sticker. They're willing to pay extra for the sticker. Whereas you have another purist who will be like, no, I don't want stickers, I don't want anything. The game must be pure. And you have those two purity sub-clans. So that's kind of an interesting idea. And then you have people who, eras and styles, and they're like, oh, hey, look, here is Pac-Man, but it's in a new era, and I can kind of enjoy this old era in this new era type thing, and it sells well. So that's kind of how arcades are run, and kind of the clans that you're going to find within an arcade, and also within arcade culture in and of itself. So this has been a rather hectic week because of power outages and not really illness, but I've got a lot of things I want to do to finish up before I head out for the Emerald City Comic Con. Next week, I'm going to be talking about Emerald City Comic Con entirely. I'm going to try to give some live videos of it. In fact, there are going to be live 360 video tours if I can do it right. I have been working on this equipment for a couple of years now, and I'm really looking forward to people actually seeing this. So, see you next week. I don't think I'm going to have anything on Monday, but by Wednesday, you're going to be overwhelmed. So, catch you all later. Bye now.